And tonight on the Daily Wrap, one day after the tragic shooting of a WDMJ reporter and cameraman live on the air, the gun debate back in full swing. Even the slain reporter's father now weighing in. Plus, Donald Trump continues to lead the conservative field, but could he beat Joe Biden in a general election? And do you trust Hillary Clinton? Nuh-uh. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my trustworthy, credible,
still trustworthy?
honest.
Did you get that poll? Yeah.
I got the check saying that I should say that. Close enough. How are you?
I'm good today. A
What
little
are we talking
calmer
about?
than yesterday. Very busy day yesterday.
It was.
So,
Why?
yeah. Well, a lot of news happening.
And it was an Arby's night, too.
So it was an Arby's night.
That's what it is for you on Wednesdays.
Arby's?
I'm told.
You know, I could talk about Arby's more than you want to know.
Really?
I actually worked, this is true, at the very first Arby's in America.
Really?
For real.
And that opened in 1912.
That's
I
right.
was gonna say, I
That's
thought
right.
you guys were talking about the early bird
Abe
special.
Lincoln was right next to me in the service line making Jamocha shakes.
Really?
Yeah.
Jamocha
Good
shakes.
stuff. All right, we have to move on to Mr. Mocha's right. She's an anchor for the Blaze TV and part of Sag Harbor's cultural elite.
Hardly.
Amy Holmes is back, and finally, she's the founder and executive editor of the Accountability Project and part of the Lower East Side's
Not anymore.
cultural elite.
She
She's
moved.
moved.
I moved 2 days ago.
Really? Congratulations. Welcome to Hoboken. Nomi Concha is here. All right, everyone, let's please get to the Daily Download.
We are approaching a moment that none of us will forget. It was yesterday around this time that we went live to Allison Parker and photojournalist Adam Ward. They were out in the field. The story was like so many others that they did all the time, reporting on our hometowns. They were at Bridgewater Plaza near Smith Mountain Lake to report on a happy event, the 50th anniversary of the lake, just a feature. And it was during a conversation with Vicki Gardner about another reason why we love living here when the peacefulness of our community was shattered. As we approach that moment, we want to pause and reflect, and we want to share with you once again what made these two so special, not just to us, but to all of our hometowns that WDBJ7 serves. Please join us now in a moment of silence.
You know, they say local news is like family, and certainly these folks definitely lost two family members, two special young people just entering the prime of their lives, and we join them as well in that moment of silence and remembering back. One day after that tragic murder of television news reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward by former employee Bryce Williams, that was, at least was his reporting name, many in America are still in shock, including their colleagues. WDMJ General Manager Jeff Marks said today that after 12 rocky months in which Williams made coworkers feel, quote, threatened and uncomfortable, he was let go.
On February 1st of 2013, two news managers and the HR manager notified Flanagan of the decision to terminate his employment. He reacted angrily, telling them that they would have to call the police because he was going to make a stink and it was going to be in the headlines. The HR rep then called 911. Employees had been notified to give Flanagan space to clean out his desk. Once at his desk, Flanagan attempted to reach the corporate CEO without success. At that point, the police arrived and escorted him from the building. On the way out, he handed a wooden cross to the news director, who was at that time Dan Dennison, and he said, "You'll need this."
Bryce Williams, whose real name is Vesterly Flanagan, cited in a manifesto he sent to ABC News that the reason for the killings was in retribution for the Charleston church shootings by Dylan Roof, and that he suffered racial discrimination, sexual harassment, and bullying at work, and that he had been attacked by black men and white females, and that he had also been, quote, attacked for being a gay black man. Ben Shapiro over at Breitbart wrote this today. Black gay reporter murders straight white journalist. Media blame the gun. All right, Rick, a lot of stories surrounding this story. Has the media gotten this right, or is it the usual craptastic display?
Neither the media nor the politicians can get it right because we don't even give these people 24 hours of our attention at such a horrible time, and we're already jumping all over the political argument. It's silly. What makes this a bit odd, though, I have to say, I was on the radio last night saying exactly what I just said, that, there ought to be a moratorium on politicians going there until the family's ready to, and up pops the father of this poor girl on television, and I said, never mind, apparently he's ready to. You know, we just keep going back to the same discussion, and nobody wants to acknowledge the truth, which is we could legislate guns out of existence tomorrow, and there'd still be 300 million guns on the street.
I couldn't agree more with you, Rick, and I think the key words were pause and reflect on the crime that was committed yesterday. And I actually watched Bryce Williams' Twitter feed as he was posting, as he was on the run, and it was chilling. I mean, and when he posted videos of himself approaching Allison and Adam and then raising his gun and firing, I had to avert my gaze. I mean, watching this was chilling. You realize you are dealing with someone who is deeply psychotic, deeply disturbed, wanted the world to know it. You look at the manifesto, he also said about the Virginia Tech shooter, quote, my boy right there, he got nearly double the amount that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold got, just saying. I mean, gun control, people can have their views on it, one side or the other, more or less, but I think when it comes to Bryce Williams, we need to also be discussing nut control, frankly.
Yeah, mentally ill, but I don't want to hear that, oh, you know, he was crazy and he didn't know what he was doing. This was a very lucid person. He actually engraved the initials of his victims into the bullets that he used.
There's crazy and crazy.
There's crazy and crazy, but
There's
he also,
evil.
there's
There's
evil,
evil.
right. But he also took the time to, as you said, all the postings on social media, and even had another car after the rental car waiting, and he had a wig. This is somebody who thought this out very well. So I don't want to hear he was crazy, didn't know what he was doing, and just decided to kill two people. This was premeditated.
This is absolutely premeditated, and this, you know, a gun should not have been put in his hands. And I understand, you know, the moratorium and pausing and reflecting, but these are the moments when the families are most angry. And if you speak to the families that have been affected by gun violence and you ask them, and this has been polled, and there are plenty of them that have gotten together for different activist groups, and they say that is the time when the country wants to have this legislation. The polls start to go down as time goes on. There's an immediate response. You know, in states where there has been gun control legislation, gun-related deaths have gone down. That is indisputable. So you can say there are 300 million guns on the streets, but the more legislation, the less guns there are in the streets. And that's all we need, is to prevent people who are mentally unstable. And should we have mental health reform? Absolutely. And, you know, we can get to an Obamacare debate about that. But it's not one or the other. It's both.
Well,
Bryce Williams, he acquired his gun legally. And you can also look at John.
Passed the background check.
He passed
he
the
did.
background
That's
check.
the
He
problem.
acquired the gun legally. The gun that he used would not be covered by any of the proposed gun legislation. He used a Glock 19. It's considered a service pistol. So we can talk about the laws, but they don't apply even to the gun that this man was holding.
That's the problem. And I'm not a big gun fan. I think that's no secret. But, you know, you can only legislate so much. I mean, what can you do? You can legislate backgrounds. I'm all for it. There should be stronger background checks. But this man was able to pass a background check. What you can't legislate against, unfortunately, is people who are in big mental trouble, as this guy obviously was. And you know what? We even have to be cautious that he's not protected in his mental state by HIPAA laws and things like that. Now, fortunately, if he had seen a psychiatrist, we have no idea if he did or not, but if he had a psychiatrist who thinks that his patient's a danger, is supposed to report that. But if he hasn't, what can you do?
And Joe, as you pointed out, his crime was premeditated, it was methodical, it was planned out.
Well planned.
He wrote a 23-page manifesto that he faxed to ABC News. He was posting on social media as he was on the run. It's hard to see how any particular piece of legislation would have been able to prevent this awful crime.
Outlawing handguns is one.
Well,
And
we can
it's
repeal the
indisputable.
Second Amendment.
It's not
Good
the Second
luck.
Amendment. Nowhere in the Second Amendment does it say anything about handguns. Militias, yes. And we're talking about, you know.
I got to tell you something. That argument has been litigated to death now. Whether we like it, whether we don't like it, Second Amendment's here to stay.
I'm not
You
disputing,
can-
I'm
but
not
no, you
disputing
can-
the Second
you can
Amendment. I'm
parse-
disputing handguns.
Wait,
And I
you
think
can
this is a real
parse- no.
conversation that's had. We're doing it in
It's
New York
been-
State.
it's been
It's already done in
litigated.
New York State.
It's
This is
been
something that's been litigated in
litigated.
New York State. Handguns have tighter controls.
In New York, because they decided to do it and it
And
passed
guess
muster.
what?
But
Guess what? Guess
No,
what? Gun
it's-
violence is down in New York State.
Great.
The cities
and
and the
you know
states.
what? I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen. So
Says
I don't
who?
like wasting
There's
time
been
on
a
it.
drop. 72% of Americans want
gotta go.
tighter gun control legislation.
It just doesn't do anything.
Do you
It's
think
gonna
the media's
happen.
gotten the story right? Let us know at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Next up, Allison Parker's father speaks out.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Now, yesterday we reported that certain politicians had wasted little time in politicizing the tragic murders of WDJB journalists Allison Parker and Adam Ward. Among those racing to television and radio microphones, along with some social media, were Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, who took to the airwaves within minutes of the shooting to discuss his plans for increased background checks for gun purchases. His efforts were then followed by Hillary Clinton, who wrote on her Twitter account, "Heartbroken and angry, we must act to stop gun violence, and we cannot wait any longer, praying for the victims' families in Virginia." Even President Obama discussed gun control following the tragedy in an interview set to air tomorrow on WPVI in Philadelphia.
It breaks my heart every time you read about or hear about these kinds of incidents. What we know is that the number of people who die from gun-related incidents around this country dwarfs any deaths that happen through terrorism.
However, one person, I'm actually thinking about what the president said, we have to talk about that. One person electing to appear before television cameras last night to discuss gun control laws, to the surprise of many, was the father of Allison Parker, Andy Parker.
We've got to do something about crazy people getting guns, and and the problem that you guys have is that, and I know it's the news business, and this is a big story, but next week it isn't going to be a story anymore, and everybody's going to forget it. But you mark my words, my mission in life. And I talked to the governor today. He called me, and he said, and I told him, I said, I'm going to do something, whatever it takes to get gun legislation to shame people, to shame legislators into doing something about closing loopholes in background checks and making sure crazy people don't get guns.
So guys, let me start with this to get this out of the way. A number of my conservative friends today, both in what they've been writing and what they're saying on the radio, on television, are criticizing the president for being wrong in saying that the number of terrorist-related deaths pale next to American gun deaths. Now, it's all how you interpret it. If you're talking about worldwide, then they're about the same, in fact. There were 33,000 gun-related deaths last year, including suicide, including murder, including accidents. There were roughly 32,000 or 33,000 of people killed by terrorists around the world. However, I think what he intended to say, and this is always a problem, is in America, terrorist deaths in America. Is this working the edge too much to just criticize President Obama?
I think the reaction to it is that these are false equivalencies and very separate issues, and that Obama tried to, pack together. That as Commander-in-Chief, it is his duty to protect us from terrorists and national security. However, there is, as we just witnessed in the last segment, a raging debate over the Second Amendment and the extent of our gun rights. When I look at this, of course, the conversation, unfortunately, always goes to gun control. I wish we had more of a conversation about how do we deal with these marginal people. This gentleman, Bryce Williams, who had been already escorted from his place of work by police because he was so out of control. How can family members better identify someone in their family who they are worried is a threat, who could be violent, who could be a murderer of his colleagues? How can we try to prevent these outside of gun control? Again, raging debate we had at the last segment. How can we give people better tools to handle these nutters, frankly, that will always be in our midst?
Joe, what do you think? I mean, are people going too far? I was actually on the Sean Hannity radio show today, and Sean was making a big fuss about this, and I went, come on. I think he was talking comparatively about the terrorist deaths in America, which we spend a lot of time worrying about, which we should. Certainly no problem with that. But do we spend enough of our resources and our time thinking about what Amy just said, how we're going to try and do something about these things that happen?
Of course we don't talk about what Amy just said, because it actually takes a thought process. That actually takes nuance. It's not an easy, simple soundbite. President should be making that comparison. I don't even know where that came from. It makes no sense. But I'm not going to criticize Andy Parker. That I know.
Well, that's the next thing I want to talk about.
Okay, because he is an emotional guy. He just lost his daughter.
Right.
Just suddenly. He hears on the radio, she was shot and was on live TV, dead, and he had to vent. So if he's being emotional and saying things that didn't make a heck of a lot of sense as far as like we need more gun legislation, well, it wouldn't have prevented this anyway. No one's going to challenge him on that.
Exactly.
Let the man vent. In fact, I wouldn't even have booked him if I'm Megyn Kelly.
Well,
you know
see,
what? I get it's a
that's
story.
where I wanna
Don't
go
book
here.
him.
That's
Well,
exactly
but if he wants to be on television to talk about this tragedy in his family,
Wait,
how do you not hear what he has to
wait,
say?
guys,
I would have said no. I understand what you're saying. I would have said no.
Excuse me. I'd like to set it up first, please.
Okay.
I want to set this up. Okay. This is a touchy thing. I mean, I was actually on the radio last night making this speech about how politicians should have a moratorium before they're allowed to politicize this kind of stuff. When the family's ready to talk about it, the politicians should. And as I'm saying all this, all of a sudden the TV's on in the background, and there is Mr. Parker on Megyn Kelly, and I'm like, well, never mind, he's apparently ready. Of course you don't want to criticize this man. He's been through the worst thing anybody could be through. But Nomi, what does this say about the media? I mean, I'm trying to envision a booker at Megyn Kelly's show calling this man the day his daughter was murdered and saying, would you like to be on our TV show tonight?
He said,
and
he said that he would do it. I mean, listen, the family has every right to. And I watched the interview 3 times, and I actually thought he brought up some very valuable points. I mean, the reality is that we're not politicizing this issue. Half of our politicians aren't talking about it, are ignoring it, and are bought and sold by interest, as he said.
To wait a couple of days?
Wait, come on. Like, we live in the real world here. People automatically...
In the real world. I was thinking about what happened to those families last night, not about the politics.
I understand that. And I'm saying, in the world that we live in, where people are live tweeting shootings and responding on tweets, this is a rapid response world. We don't live in the 1950s anymore.
Pause and reflect does not apply here, unfortunately, because we have to fill airtime. That's the way it is. Sorry.
All right, so we got to wrap it up. What do you think about Mr. Parker's comments about guns? Let us know at newsmaxtv.com/comments. And coming up next, Donald Trump continues to lead the GOP field, but could he be beat by Joe Biden in a general election? Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Let's check in with the Lord of the Manor, Steve Malzberg, and see what he has planned for this evening. Stevie.
Joe, why aren't they calling the Virginia shooter a black, gay, racist Obama supporter? Could you imagine if he had a Trump button on him once when doing a stand-up? We'll talk about that with the Malzberg panel. We also have Ari Fleischer here, the former governor of Virginia. Jim Gilmore will join us as well. Action-packed show. It's on right after the Daily Wrap, of course, 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it.
So glad I DVR this program. Well, Hillary Clinton is feeling some heat. I'm in commute, that's why. Hillary Clinton is feeling some heat after the threat of Joe Biden jumping into the race looks more and more apparent. To get more in this story, here's John Bachman in our Florida studios.
These new poll numbers are just one more reason why the Clinton campaign is sweating it out this summer, so much so that Mrs. Clinton broke from her Hamptons vacation to hit the campaign trail in Iowa. That new Quinnipiac poll shows that Joe Biden would beat Donald Trump by 8 points. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush by 6, and Senator Marco Rubio by 3. But Clinton only beats Trump by 4 points, Bush by 2, and Rubio by 1. Politico also reports that Bill Clinton is, quote, very agitated by a possible but still unannounced Biden entry into the White House race. From Iowa, Hillary said Biden is a friend, but she also said it would be a really hard decision for the vice president to make.
Losing his first wife, losing his first daughter, now losing his son. I think everybody should, he has to do what he has to do.
And yet another signal that Biden is getting serious about entering the race. Today, he met with the president of the AFL-CIO, according to a source. For the Daily Wrap, I'm John Bachman.
Thank you, John. Okay, just a little reminder for you guys. You can get your own copy of Ted Cruz's best-selling book. We're going to tell you more about that in just a moment. But let's talk first about Hillary Clinton's comments. Just kind of stood out to me as callous is the only word I can come up with.
This is the second time I've heard this, and you guys are all being a little rough.
I'm not.
Yeah, because
let's ask the liberal on the table. I'm pretty sure
I know.
The real liberal, like left of you liberal.
I am not a Clinton supporter. We all know that. I'm a Biden supporter. But, you know, Hillary is not a monster. I just don't agree with the way her campaign's gone. I don't think she's the best person to be president when compared to Joe Biden. But that she was not being insincere there.
Was she
was not
expressing
being
sympathy,
political.
or was she bearing the knife?
Exactly.
I
Like,
don't
oh, he's a bad guy. If he runs for president, he doesn't care about his family. He's done this 3 times before. Let me remind you. Oh, she does not get along with Joe Biden. We all know
I gotta
it.
tell you, it's this kind of cynicism that wrecks politics. She is not a monster. She is friends
she's a
with.
monster.
Yeah, you
Clinton
did.
is the
No, she's
epitome
not
of cynical.
friends with Joe Biden.
What you're saying is that she's using these terrible things that have happened to Joe Biden to bury Joe Biden. That is a monster. And I don't believe that's what she's doing at all.
She's a politician.
Look, she's friends with this man.
No, she's not. Let's start with that.
No, yes, she is actually.
You don't think they are friends?
Actually, I know they're friends.
All right.
Nomi?
I've been in the same parties with the two of them. I know that they're friends, and they are friends. So let's not.
But
do that.
Rick,
invited to these
let's
parties?
face it. Rick, Hillary she plays hardball when it comes to politics. We know this. We
But
also
not
know that
everything
she
she
is the
says.
queen of cynicism, Hillary
Yeah,
Clinton.
but you know what
this
else
is
I
the
know?
same person who introduces my husband, Bill Clinton, and they don't even live in the same house.
But you guys get on her for never showing her emotional side. She does it once, and you beat her up for being.
That's right. She
insincere.
cried before New Hampshire. I do remember
I don't
that.
necessarily agree that she was being emotional. I think that this was the first time she was asked about Joe Biden, and she had to
It wasn't
respond.
the
and
first time she was asked
It was
about
the first
Joe
time
Biden.
she
No, it
answered
wasn't.
about Joe Biden.
No,
I
it's
should
not.
say.
I haven't seen too many public comments
She
that she's
answered
made about Joe
no,
Biden.
She answered about him yesterday, and she said he's a friend of mine.
That was the same clip.
No, it was not the same clip.
Here's what
it
you
was
say.
a different one.
Here's what you say. It's very
Let's be
simple.
accurate.
Here's what you say here. Boy, he's got a lot of experience. Obviously, he's served our country
said
well as
that
a vice
yesterday.
president,
Right.
and it would make for a robust debate.
Right.
So whatever
Like
Joe
Bernie Sanders
decides
said it.
would be great.
She
Something.
What he
said
did.
that. That's what
No,
was
she
on her
didn't.
mind
She's
at
bringing
this
up- she's
moment.
bringing up
Well, you know what,
Dead
we're
Biden.
not
In
gonna
this
be-
one clip.
Right.
In this one clip that we're pulling out, she said all those things you just said.
Listen, I don't think we're going to be able to settle here. Hillary Clinton's intent as a woman, as women, we might have been interpreted one way. As Hillary Clinton's great defender at this table, you interpreted it
Listen,
another way.
I
But
don't-
let's just say that it was inartful.
I do not support her, but I am not going to do that to people. It is the worst parts of being a pundit is when you do that. There are people running for president on the Republican side that I deeply disagree with, but that doesn't make them bad people.
Okay, let's get to the lightning round, shall we? I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Joe Biden jumps in.
Yeah.
Who gets the Democratic nomination?
I mean, obviously Joe Biden. We know how I feel, and I've made the case time and time again.
All right, you're
Hillary
biased
keeps
then.
no, but she keeps slipping. She slipped 20 points in the past 2 months.
I
It's just
agree.
going to keep happening.
Okay, Amy Holmes.
Ooh, DOJ keeps investigating Joe Biden.
Okay, and
Way too early to tell. I hope Joe Biden, but I think you all need to understand it a little bit better. It's not a done deal.
okay, and I take Lincoln Chafee. Just a little reminder for you guys.
metric system.
Yes, I love the metric system. A Royale with cheese. You can get your own copy of Ted Cruz's best-selling book, A Time for Truth. It's for free. With this special offer from Newsmax, go to newsmax.com/Ted Cruz or call 1-800-485-4350 for your free copy. That's newsmax.com/Ted Cruz or go to 1-800 or call 1-800-485-4350. There's a free offer for a limited time, so act now. More Daily Wrap in just a moment.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Hillary Clinton's email scandal continues to present serious challenges to her efforts to win the White House, as more than half of Americans now find that she's dishonest and untrustworthy. A new Quinnipiac poll out today finds that 61% of Americans now say Mrs. Clinton is not honest and not trustworthy, her worst score since April. And to make matters even worse, the poll also finds that most voters associate the word liar with Mrs. Clinton as well, along with the previously mentioned descriptors untrustworthy and dishonest. Guys, you know, I don't know how she overcomes this, but we wanted to know what New Yorkers had to say about it. So we sent our own Nora DeBroder out on the street to ask them what they think about Hillary Clinton's honesty and trustworthiness.
I'm Nora DeBroder for Newsmax TV. Hillary Clinton started off strong in her run for the Democratic nomination, but now 46% of likely voters are saying she should suspend her campaign. What do New Yorkers think? Let's find out.
I don't think she should suspend her campaign. I don't think this, tells the viewers one way or another, or the American people one way or another, whether or not this makes her qualified to run a country.
Well, certainly there are other Democrats that have thought about running for president that smell blood in the water. There's no question about that. Joe Biden's looking about jumping in, and which I think would be a game changer, certainly. So, again, we'll see what happens. This is not the first scandal we've seen with the Clintons. They've been able to survive through the others. And it's clear we've seen from the poll that a lot of people think that she shouldn't be running. But ultimately, Democratic primary voters are going to have an opportunity in Iowa and New Hampshire to figure that out themselves.
Well, I don't know. Some people, a lot of people may not like her, but she's a hard, kick-ass woman, and you need someone in there who's, going to be tough.
I think that everyone who's in the campaign has something that they're probably hiding. I think that Hillary has good intentions, so I would probably say that I think she should still be able to run.
No, I don't think she should suspend her campaign. What do we have? No, I don't think she broke the law.
I don't know if we have enough evidence to determine that yet. I think it'll be interesting to see more and more as we delve into these emails whether she has or hasn't.
If she broke the law, which has not been proven, then she should step down. Yeah, that's what I think.
I think House Republicans, I think the Department of Justice, they're going to have their hands full to really delve in there and to see whether she really broke the law or not. But certainly the perception is that she broke the law. The perception is there's something to hide, and I think sometimes perception is reality in politics.
Talk about breaking the law. Everybody, I don't care if the president breaks the law, as long as he's doing it for us. I don't mind the president being a conniver as long as you're doing it for the American people. We need the best conniver that we can get in there. Actually, I want Warren Buffett for president.
So guys, the answers seem pretty one-sided, but we will have to just see how this all plays out. Back to you in the studio.
Do you even need us here? I mean,
I think we'll be hiring the guy in the plaid shirt. I mean, he was
that guy.
He was president of the punditocracy. Whoa. I don't even know what to say. Actually, though, I thought it was interesting. The one person was talking about suspending the campaign, which has come up. And it's obviously, if anybody knows anything about politics, suspending a campaign means ending a campaign. Yes. So I'm not quite sure what that's all about.
Although John McCain, you remember, did suspend his campaign briefly to come back to Washington, D.C.
for about 7 hours, as I recall.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. I liked the guy who said that we need a conniver.
A conniver in chief.
Yes. And that she was a kick-ass one. But what is so extraordinary to me about this new polling is that it's been Hillary Clinton running against herself.
Well,
she's beating herself up. I mean, her poll numbers going down are entirely of her own making. She hasn't had any serious criticism, clearly, obviously from the Democratic Party, and certainly not from the Republican Party. So she's sitting there, and I have this mental picture of her punching herself in the face for the last 4 months, and
basically
bruising herself up.
And if Joe Biden does jump into the race, that's going to be a very tricky position. I mean, he can't pile it on her. I mean, this is
why not?
Why not?
I think it would make him look bad. I think it would be really nasty. There was a few stories written about it last week or earlier this week when the polls came out saying that if it would be a really nasty fight. And I think that she, as long as she's sabotaging herself and he just focuses on the issues, he'll come out looking the best.
Well, Amy's right. We've been saying this for a long time. Bernie Sanders may be up there running, but Hillary's running against Hillary. She has been all along, and she's losing. Both Hillarys are losing. So,
if there were a serious candidate on that side of the ledger, as Noah Rothman pointed out last night, they would be criticizing Hillary Clinton about the email server, about the Clinton Foundation, and they're petrified too because it's we don't want to hurt our chances to be vice president.
That's true, but on the other hand, she's doing the job for them. So why go negative when she's doing it herself?
If I were a consultant, I think every political consultant would say that. Hands off.
Back to the package.
When your opponent is setting themselves on fire, you stand back and watch.
You're right. You're right.
All right, so you guys heard what New Yorkers seem to think about Hillary Clinton's trustworthiness, but we want to know what you think. Do you think Hillary Clinton broke the law with her email server? Let us know at newsmaxpolls.com. Coming up next, we're going to do it. It's time to read some of your viewer comments. Don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have a few thoughts on the shooting in Virginia. Here's one from Steve who says, quote, "A bad person will find a way to do bad things. If there were no guns anywhere on earth, a bad person would pick up a club, stick, or stone to perform his evil deed. Guns do not kill. people killed. Before we get to you, just want to discuss that real quick. The guy that carried this out, Bryce Williams, was so close to those folks that he very easily could have just stabbed them to death as well. I mean,
but you know, we talked about this, but probably not two of them. Much better chance he'd only kill one of them.
Right, and not wound a third. So, yeah.
Okay. Or he might have chosen different opportunities. I mean, who knows?
You don't know.
But mass shootings would be down, and that's on the rise.
So Wayland says, for everybody who spouts more gun control, I remind those people that our Constitution grants us the right to bear arms. I will not allow someone to control my guns because some nutcase went ballistic and killed someone for no reason except hatred.
Okay, David says, I just can't understand why a tragedy such as this one is always in the news when guns are involved. They attack gun advocates, but when it's black on black gun violence, there's hardly any coverage.
He's got a point there. You know, I mean, we should be talking about what's happening in Chicago every day because it is the story.
Probably dozens of people have been killed in Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit since this
shootings
happened in 48.
88 shootings a day, but most of them are white-on-white violence.
White-on-white violence is where the shootings are coming from?
No, nationally. Nationally, 88
Well, Elijah
shootings
Cummings,
a
a Democratic congressman from Maryland, he had a press conference a couple weeks ago with the mayor of Baltimore pleading and begging with the citizens of Baltimore to please cooperate with police so that they can bring gun violence down.
Interesting. Okay, Rick.
We also have some thoughts about Donald Trump. I'm shocked. Here's one from Debbie who says, Megyn Kelly isn't a professional journalist. As far as Trump telling her so, it's the truth. And if she can't take it, then that's her problem, not Trump's. I got to ask the question, what exactly do you think a professional journalist is? Just somebody who agrees with the candidate you like?
She does get paid. That makes her professional.
Some people think the questions were unfair because they were personal, not based on policy, and Kelly keeps taking a beating even though her ratings keep going up. So as I wrote yesterday, everybody is winning in this war between Trump and Fox and Ailes and Kelly and so on. Everybody is benefiting, which is remarkable. It's not like baseball where you have a winner or a loser, right?
Except Martin O'Malley.
Except Martin O'Malley, right, yeah. Anyway, O'Malley and Chapey in one show, sure. Joseph says, doesn't call himself Joe, good for you, Donald Trump has a huge following because a large majority of American people are sick and tired, disgusted and angry with politicians and news media as usual. Trump speaks for us because we are not the lay down and roll over types. All right, take it.
All right, and John says Trump needs to let it go with Megyn Kelly. He is demeaning himself and lowering himself with the renewing of attacks. At one point, I was looking at him closely, but with his antics, I have begun looking at more true conservatives who are more mature. I just wish a few more would be more true to themselves and less politically correct. Well, you know, that viewer expresses the big question we all have. Is the time going to come when people who are supporting Mr. Trump start to take that point of view? You know, the one thing I keep bringing up is, look, Trump, say what you will about him, he's doing awfully well. The question is, you know, all of us who've worked in politics know you don't want to peak too early.
That's true. And at the moment of truth, when someone goes into the polling booth, will they really pull the lever to make Donald Trump President of the United States? We'll see.
Does he have, this is a question I asked a couple nights ago, so I want to get your thoughts on it. Does he have the maturity to be the President of the United States? Maturity, because what he tweeted out a couple of nights ago against Megyn Kelly, and again, people sitting at home, we love Trump, you're taking Kelly's side. It was completely unprovoked to retweet out about Bimbo and to compare to Nancy Grace, and all I can think of is this the person that could be President of the United States when he's acting like a sophomore in high school?
Joe, he makes Beavis and Butthead look like models of maturity. Okay, when he is talking about, you know, he disputes it, but when he's talking about Megyn Kelly and her menstrual cycle, when he's calling Rosie O'Donnell pig face, this is not someone I think who has the temperament to be President of the United States. And also, let's remember, he said that he and Fox had, you know, hugged and made up and kissed and made up. It seems very uncivilized and ungentlemanly of him to resume, as you say, unprovoked.
What are the odds this is all a setup between Roger Ailes and Donald Trump?
I don't think it is. I mean, I spoke with Howie Kurtz. He was the host of Media Buzz at Fox News, and he said that Megyn Kelly really did not want to be the story and was not enjoying Donald Trump's attacks.
Yeah, and plus Megyn wasn't behind the grassy knoll when she put those questions together. At the time, Dan Rather said the same thing, like, this is all just a setup.
Well,
so why? Because Fox needs ratings?
Well, it doesn't hurt them to get higher ratings.
That's the name of the game. That's a lot of coordination that you'd have to put together for.
Yeah.
I don't
absolutely.
know.
Donald Trump is a little unhinged. you never know what's going to happen.
Say something nasty.
Yeah, you would have to know that the reaction would be what this is now, and then that
well,
Megyn
at
Kelly
the
would
outset,
benefit.
yes, but now.
Right. Okay, well, I have to tell you about this. If you want to weigh in on any of the issues we talk about here on the show, be sure to go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know what you think. And be sure to get your own copy of the Ted Cruz best-selling book, A Time for Truth, for free with this special offer from Newsmax. Go to newsmax.com/Ted Cruz or call 1-800-485-4350. Yay or nay daily wrap, that is next. Welcome back to Daily Wraps. Time for Yay or Nay. First up, do you know how big the federal government is? Don't feel bad if you don't, because federal officials don't seem to know either. According to the Competitive Enterprise Institute, everybody knows who they are, the number of federal agencies can vary anywhere from 60 to 430 depending on who you ask. The online agencies, but the Administrative Conference of the United States lists 115 agencies. Adding that, there is no authoritative list of government agencies. Sleep well tonight. Is this a great example of a much larger, more serious problem within our government? Yay or nay? We don't even know how many agencies we have. Know me. Kick it.
We need better technology to regulate these agencies, to connect them. There's no interconnectedness.
Can't we just count?
I was going to say we
2.
need better legislation to cut them, to legislate them out of existence. I mean, we have agencies we don't even know exist, and I'm sure they're getting money. What are they doing? Can I be an agency? Can I just have people send me money and I'll be a federal agency?
Interesting.
You got to say yay to this, but I still say we always ask the wrong question. The question is less about how many are there, and the question should be how effective are they?
Yeah.
If they're effective and they're doing something that's benefiting the American people, live and be well. If they're just there and ineffective, they should go away.
If you don't know they exist, if a tree falls in the forest and you're not there to hear it, how effective can they be?
I think we need another czar, an agency czar, just to count them and then audit them from there. Next. Two of Donald Trump's biggest fans were on TV together last night when the aforementioned Megyn Kelly interviewed Univision's Jorge Ramos about his altercation with Mr. Trump in Iowa Tuesday. Ramos said, or told Ms. Kelly, that the GOP frontrunner has an obligation to answer questions from the press, even though he cut in line, no matter who's asking the question, what network they work for, or what they happen to ask. Yeah, that's not spinning a tale on what really happened or anything. We talked about this a little bit last night, but was Donald Trump wrong for having Jorge Ramos removed from the press conference? Yay or nay, Unger? He was brought back.
I love Mr. Ramos. I've been watching him for years. He is absolutely the voice of the Latino people. But I actually thought Trump handled it properly, and mainly because he was not asking him questions. He was making a speech, and he did cut in front. Look, press conferences are a scrum. Everybody's screaming, everybody's raising their hand. But once somebody's called on, it's not about being disrespectful to Trump. He was being disrespectful to the journalists who had been called on.
That's right. And it wasn't like it was done at the end of the press conference when he realized he wasn't going to get called on. It was after the second question that he jumped in. And it was no longer a question, it was a speech. And when you make speeches at press conferences like that, you're no longer a reporter, you are a protester. And protesters get removed. But, as I noted last night, Trump, this is just like his immigration policy. Jorge Ramos was deported, right? And then they realized, okay, you're good, and then they brought him back.
Bring him back in. That's hysterical. It's a metaphor.
One of the good ones.
Right, but he is an American citizen,
Yes,
so
he
he didn't necessarily deserve to be deported. Look, I thought Donald Trump handled it. I thought he handled it fine. I agree that Jorge Ramos was less a reporter than he was editorializing. What more would you say about this? I think Ronald Reagan had the best line. I paid for this microphone. At press conferences, the candidate can call on whomever he likes, answers whichever questions he likes, or if he's Hillary Clinton, tie them all in a rope and walk away.
Right. Or if you're Barack Obama, spy on them.
It's different when you're elected. Then you have more of an obligation to take.
Rick makes
you don't own the microphone.
To be fair here, there was an argument going on between Jorge Ramos and Trump well before this. So as a reporter, Jorge knew what his odds of getting a question now were, so he had an opportunity. And listen, his job is to ask questions. He didn't do anything wrong. Whether it was composed or not.
He didn't do it to Trump. He did it to the other reporter who was called on.
Sure, but he's not running for office. Donald Trump is running for office, and all that matters is how Donald Trump looks, and he didn't handle that well. It's a problem for Donald Trump, not a problem for Jorge Ramos.
Oh, Donald Trump got conservatives united behind him for the first time in his campaign.
That's true.
But not...
Anyway.
I can go on.
I think we got to go. I think I'm
it?
being told
Already?
it's
We're
over.
out. What?
We're
Done, just like that.
We turned yay or
We
nay
just started.
into a stand-up routine, a soliloquy. So that happened. So anyway, thank you, Rick Unger, my co-host, and we thank you too for coming
Thank
as
you,
well.
Joe.
Nomi,
Pleasure.
Amy, we're a pleasure to have tonight, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have you back. I love your ring, by the way. It's
I
tremendous.
know, blingy bling.
Anyway, that's all for tonight. And again, thank you for joining us here on the Daily Wrap. And guess who's coming up next? That's right, Steve Malzberg and the Steve Malzberg Show. That's next.